All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sovereign State. I'm your host, Brandis P. Bonos. I got a big show coming up for you guys today. Today, we're going to be reacting to this debate on whether or not Christianity should make a return to the United States. It features Andrew Wilson arguing on Piers Morgan, and they're debating whether or not Christians are under attack. Now, full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of Andrew Wilson. Never have been. I don't know whether or not you can say he engages in bad faith debate. I don't know if you can make that claim. It's kind of hard to discern whether or not somebody's engaging in bad faith. That it's a matter of perception. But personally, the way I see it, he does engage in many aggressive debate tactics that just from pure optics do not register as trying to engage in a dialogue that bridges understanding. It always seems like he's trying to corner his opponent. He's trying to make them look as bad as possible. And I can understand there are certain contexts in which that's the right approach. But personally, for me, whenever I see that kind of debate tactic being used on somebody who seems like they're trying to have a conversation, it always comes across like you're trying to bully this person. But that's just my perception of it. But anyways, I'm going to react to this video, see what it's all about. I want to see what this, I don't know, I want to see how this conversation unfolds. We'll see what Mr. Wilson has to say. Should be an interesting video. Well, yeah, with that being said, let me try and fix my, I don't know what's going on with OBS. It's being weird here. Like my image, it's not taking up the full screen. Let me see if I can fix this. Very strange how this works. See if I can fix that. Interesting. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Much better. Beautiful. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get right into this reaction, guys. Thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and do this.
We have to bring back religion to America, because without borders, law and order, and religion, you really don't have a country anymore. We want religion brought back.
So the very foundation of the United States of America was indeed to be one nation under God. Nothing could have prepared me for the slew of attack against.
That's a very dumb way of interpreting that. When they say one nation under God, they're not referring to the Christian God. They're referring to any God that exists. Just God in general. If there is a God, we want the United States to be under that God. It wasn't making any religious prescription there, so I don't know why. Anyways.
Anyone who is a conservative Christian in America.
By the way, anytime you see, I just want to make something clear. Just off rip. You guys probably know this. Anytime you see a blonde white woman in politics and she's a Christian and she's a conservative, they're a grifter. Let's make that immediately clear. Most of them are not educated. Most of them don't have an advanced degree. Most of them have not read anything. They don't know anything about politics. They don't know anything about history. They're an attractive white woman with blonde hair. They fit the trad wife 1950s stereotype. And because they're attractive and they have enough money to buy a microphone and a decent camera, they can do this whole conservative grift. Lily Gaddis did it. Megyn Kelly does it. Well, in Megyn Kelly's defense, she's a real reporter. But Lily Gaddis did it. Sarah Stock is doing it. This lady's doing it. Brett Cooper. There's plenty of examples, right? It's a huge grift. There's a huge market for it. To hear a attractive white blonde woman stand up, I guess, for a lack of better words, the interests of white men and Christianity, easy grift. Huge money cow, huge cash cow. So anyways, I believe with my whole heart, until proven otherwise, that this woman is a grifter.
Right-wing Christianity in America has been suckered for a very long time into aligning with power and authority instead of challenging it as Christ did. Donald Trump didn't get the love of
100%. Yeah, I don't know why would you react like that? That's the truth. The Catholic Church in Europe literally alongside the state, the monarchy, the rulers, engaged in corruption for centuries. Yeah, absolutely. This is a fact. The state, or the church, has always colluded with the state to serve its own interests. Yes, this is a thing that has happened historically. Yes, this is undeniable. This is a fact. Yeah, absolutely.
Evangelicals by promising to do a damn thing Jesus commanded of us. Right-wing Christianity does not fight for the things Jesus commanded and taught us to do.
We're not doing the persecuting, doofus. So the thing is, it's so funny here. It's like, even when we have full spectrum, even when we have full spectrum dominance, Jesus called people vipers like you.
Dude, hit the other cheek. I can take it.
The fatal attack on a Mormon church in Michigan this weekend was interpreted by some as more evidence of a very literal attack on Christianity and its values. Benny Johnson commented that Christianity is the most persecuted religion on earth and that it's time to...
Mormons are not Christian. Mormons are considered idolaters. What is Benny Johnson talking about? Mormons are considered idolaters by Christians. Mormons are Unitarians. Oh, my camera's about to die. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me fix this. Apologies. As I was saying, Mormons are Unitarians. Christians don't even think Mormons are going to heaven. They don't believe in the Trinity. They don't believe that Jesus Christ was God. They don't partake in the sacraments, the Eucharist, none of that. Mormons are basically a pseudo-Christian cult. So I don't know why Benny Johnson would even consider them Christians. That doesn't make sense.
Benny Johnson commented that Christianity is the most persecuted religion.
And I'm pretty sure the person who shot up that Mormon church, wasn't that guy a Christian? Didn't he say Mormons were the Antichrist?
On earth,
I don't get it.
And that it's
Very
time
weird.
to get serious about it. It came just a week after Charlie Kirk's memorial, at which he was hailed as both a prophet and a martyr in a service infused with abundant biblical commentary. For some, all this points to an overdue revival of Christian values in a culture which has sought to eradicate them. But others are warning about a rise in so-called Christian nationalism, a hardline supremacist movement which uses faith as a fig leaf for uncompromising views, threatening to undermine the separation of church and state. We're going to debate this with three Christians, one a proud Christian nationalist, one a young moderate, and one who says conservatives have hijacked Christianity for their own malicious ends. This is Andrew Wilson, the host of The Crucible, John Fugelsang, author of Separation of Church and Hate, unpacking...
Why does he have one side of his collar untucked and one side tucked in? Like, that's not tough. I'm sorry, that just looks sloppy. That doesn't look tough.
Extremist politics, religion, and the urgent
No
struggle
offense, but
for compassion in America. And the host of the Isabel Brown Show on Daily Wire and a close friend of Charlie Kirk.
Oh, there you go. She works at the Daily Wire. Enough said.
Isabel Brown. Well, welcome to all three of you. Andrew Wilson. Donald Trump came out over the weekend and called this latest attack on the church in Michigan an attack on Christians in a post on his Truth Social platform.
Notice how he won't say anything, though. Notice how Trump won't say anything about the guy who did that attack being a Trump supporter. The guy who shot up that Mormon church in Michigan. That white man who is a former U.S. veteran, served in Iraq. Or, I'm sorry, was a former U.S. military member. He's a veteran, served in Iraq. He was a Trump supporter. He had a Trump poster in his front yard. There's photos of him wearing MAGA shirts. His, I don't know, what was it, a Chevy Silverado, had two huge American flags on the back of it. Dude, this guy was obviously right-leaning. Like, by every observable metric, he was right-leaning. But of course, conveniently, he won't talk about how his side is committing violence. He'll talk about how Christians are under attack. They'll just lie. Like, they'll just blatantly lie and just ignore anything that's inconvenient. I love it. That's, hey, information war. I get it.
We don't actually know, as things stand, whether that was the motivation. We know that the suspect who died in all this was a former US Marine, Thomas Jacob Sanford, and he had been pictured wearing a Trump t-shirt with the slogan, "Make liberals cry again," which may be an indication that he wasn't anti-Trump. We just don't know, as things stand, what his motivation was for this. As so often with these kind of incidents, I always think it's prudent to take a beat and just try and see if more information comes out as to why he may have done this. But Trump has gone out there on the attack, as he often does, and said, this is an attack on Christians. What do you feel?
Well, I mean, Trump is just following the trends. We remember what happened with Charlie Kirk when progressives tried to paint him as some right-wing graper. Turns out that was all complete and total lies. They were doing damage control. They tried to paint him out to be a right-winger, clear up until it became irrefutable that he was not anymore. And then they just changed the narrative again. So Trump is just following the trends. It is the case that Christians are persecuted in the United States, have been for a long time. And they're going to continue to be. That's kind of our cross to bear. We were told that was going to be the case. In fact, that's part of what being a Christian is. As to Trump following the trends and making the assumption, do I kind of agree that you should have caution on these things? I do, but I can completely understand why it would be that he would have that reaction.
John Fugelsang, Benny Johnson posted about this attack on the church in Michigan. If a mosque was shut up every month, it would be a crisis for Muslims. If a synagogue was shut up every month, it would be a crisis for Jews. If a temple was shut up every month, it would be a crisis for Hindus. Christians, this is happening to us. Christianity is under attack. It's time to get serious about it. What's your response to that?
Mormons are not Christian. Like, why the conflation? Just to push this Christian narrative. Mormons are not Christians. This is crazy. Mormons don't believe in the Trinity. They are not Christians. That is literally the foundation of Christianity, believing in the Trinity. If you don't believe in the Trinity, you are not a Christian. You are a heretic. This has nothing to do with Christianity. This is about Mormons. This is so crazy to me.
I keep hoping that one of these preventable attacks will inspire our Christian friends on the right to want to make it a little bit harder for unstable white men to easily get weapons that are designed to kill lots of people really fast. I really hoped after the awful murder of Mr. Kirk that some of our friends on the right would agree that maybe it's far too easy for unstable 20-something males to get their hands on hardware and pop off and murder people at a political rally.
He was using an antique rifle, dude. He was using an antique rifle.
I know.
An antique bolt.
It was unsecured.
Legislation?
I didn't interrupt you once, my friend.
This is what I'm talking about with Andrew Wilson being bad faith and being annoying. You'll be in the middle of a sentence. You'll be trying to flesh out an idea. And before you can even finish, he's jumping in, railroading you with like 5 different questions, trying to dispute everything you say. That's what I'm talking about, man. This is why I think he can be insufferable. It's like, just be patient. Just chill and let the person speak and then respond.
Yeah, but what legislation do you think? What legislation do you think would have even been passed that would have prevented
if his grandfather had been obliged to if his grandfather had been legally obliged to keep his gun secured at home, that shooting wouldn't have happened, and the Sandy Hook shooting would not have happened.
You can't even demonstrate that's true. For all you know, the kid has the safe code.
You're not letting me finish, and you've interrupted me twice now. Piers, the deal is right-wing Christianity in America has been suckered, and you're really going to... I'm going to answer Piers's question, my friend. I didn't interrupt you. Right-wing Christianity in America has been suckered for a very long time into aligning with power and authority instead of challenging it as Christ did. Donald Trump didn't get the love of evangelicals by promising to do a damn thing Jesus commanded of us. Right-wing Christianity does not fight for the things Jesus commanded and taught us to do. Right-wing,
it's so funny because right-wing Christians, you know, I'm a nationalist. So, you know, I ideologically am opposed to migration in large numbers. I care about the nation. and I care about strong borders, and I care about prioritizing the people in the nation rather than letting immigrants come in for this kind of weird, globalist free borders agenda. That said, Jesus Christ was very clearly pro-immigration, or at the very least, he welcomed immigrants, right? So Jesus Christ in Leviticus, as a matter of fact, let me look up the quote because I'm gonna butcher it. Leviticus quote from Jesus on immigration. This is important. I think everybody needs to, and we can dispute what this means in the context of it. That's fine. But I want to make it very clear that Jesus was very welcoming to foreigners, very welcoming to immigrants. He says, quote, this is Leviticus 19, Leviticus chapter 19, lines 33 through 34. It says, quote, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt, unquote. Okay, so very clearly it says that Jesus wanted his followers to love immigrants, to love foreigners. It couldn't be more clear. So I do find it rich how some of the most xenophobic people in this country are white Christians. I do find that weird. It's antithetical to what Christ preached. But anyways, I'll let them continue.
Not fight for the things Jesus commanded and taught us to do. Right-wing Christianity fights for conservative Christian power over every level of society. They do not fight to welcome the stranger, as Christ commands in Matthew 25 and as God commands throughout the Old Testament. They do not fight for individuals and nations to care for the sick and the poor, as commanded by Christ in the judgment of nations. They fight for right-wing.
Look at all her facial expressions. Very weird, this character. It's almost AI. It's like fake.
Conservative Christian power, and America is suffering from a gun plague where children are now killed by guns more than disease, more than they are killed by car accidents. And I keep praying this is exactly the sort of situation where a religion based on love and empathy will come to our rescue. And yet, our conservative Christian friends are locked in this mindset that somehow personal freedoms matter more than the lives of Americans.
Isabel,
so everything he just said there was absolutely true.
But we'll
see what Andrew has to say. I'm gonna be fair.
I'll come back to you, but let Isabel react because you've been pulling a lot of faces as you were listening to that.
Yeah, Piers, I was on with you the day that Charlie was shot, actually. We were talking about the murder of Irina Zarutska on the train in Charlotte, and I was very baffled by what I was hearing then. Nothing could have prepared me for the slew of attack against anyone who is a conservative Christian in America the last 30 seconds. There is not a single...
None of that was in it. He's calling out Christian conservatives for being hypocritical. He's not attacking Christian conservatives in the sense that he's attacking them as Christians or whatever. It's a weird way to phrase it. He's giving a critique.
Gun law on the books that would have prevented Charlie Kirk from being assassinated at a gun-free zone on the campus of Utah Valley University. When we saw the manifesto published to YouTube about the shooter at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, you saw a very specific, detailed attack that was specifically against Christian children and their families, really warping in a very twisted demonic sense the mass with engravings and diary entries saying, "This is my body." I mean, we were watching a very coordinated attack going back to the Nashville shooting and to many other attacks on churches across the country over the past few years, of which there have been more than 500 attacks on Catholic churches in the United States in the last 5 years or so.
Attacks? What do you mean attacks? I gotta double check that statistic. Let me see.
Back to the Nashville shooting and to many other attacks on churches across the country over the past few years, of which there have been more than 500 attacks on Catholic churches in the United States in the last
500 attacks on Catholic churches. I wonder how many of those were carried out. Let me see. Let me look into that, because if that's true, then she might have an argument here. Has there been 500 attacks on Catholic churches? She said in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years. So let's fact check this. Has there been 500 attacks on Catholic churches in the last 5 years? It depends on what you mean by attacks: vandalism, arson, desecration, theft, death threats, and what region you're asking about. But yes, according to tracking by U.S. organizations, there have been 500 plus incidents against Catholic churches in the U.S. over the last 5 years. So her language was very vague. She said 500 attacks, right? As in the context of talking about Charlie Kirk and a shooting at a Mormon church, it implies shootings. There's been 500 shootings on Catholic churches. It says Catholic Votes Tracker reports 528 attacks against Catholic churches in the U.S. since May 20. By mid-2025, another report says 507. Types of incidents include arson, vandalism, graffiti, statues, damaged windows. Half of this is arson. It's arson, vandalism, property damage. It's, oh my God. It's, okay, so it's disingenuous. Because the way she said it, she made it sound like people are going into 500 people, or 500 separate cases, rather. There was a gunman who went into a Catholic church and shot up the church. Property damage happens every day, everywhere in the United States. Graffiti, vandalism, burglary. This country is crime infested. To make this out to like, oh, there's some grand attack on Christians, there's this grand attack on Catholics. No, there's not. Like, you're not, this is crazy. I'm sorry, this is crazy. Continue.
Last 5 years or so.
By the way, it's just a propaganda narrative. She works for Daily Wire. She's a propagandist. Let's get that.
This is clearly a specific.
Let's understand that. That's what this lady is. She's a propagandist for the right wing.
Attack against Christianity in America, but let's pretend that it's not just about America for a second, because the truth is it's not. Christianity, by the numbers, is by far and large the most persecuted religion on the face of the planet today. In Nigeria, just a few days ago, more than 60 people were killed using hammers and machetes after attending mass at a Catholic.
It's always funny how they bring up. Here's the thing too. It's always interesting how these immigration restrictionist conservatives will talk about Christians being persecuted in Nigeria. Donald Trump will let white Afrikaners from South Africa come to the United States under the auspices of a white genocide, but he won't extend that same courtesy to Nigerian Christians. Because if he did, he'd understand very clearly that his base would be like, no, we don't want these refugees. We don't want these black, dark-skinned refugees in the United States. Christians would be saying that. White Christians would be saying that. And the reason why is because they don't care about Christianity or Christians if they're not white. Otherwise, you'd have hordes of Christians saying, they're attacking Nigerian Christians in Nigeria. Why don't you bring them here to protect them? The white Christians here don't give a damn. It's not real. It's political Christianity. That's what it is. I call it political Christianity. That's all it is. It's disingenuous. They don't care about Nigerian Christians being killed. Or else they'd say, hey, bring them here. Give them protected status, TPS. They're not advocating that because they don't want more black people in the country. Very simple. And furthermore, Africa, I mean, it's always been violent. It's a tribal place. Africa is very tribal. Nigeria is tribal. South Africa is tribal. Kenya is tribal. It's more of a tribal problem than it is an attack on Christianity. There are so many different tribes, so many different religions, so many different ethnic groups living in tight, compact countries throughout all of Africa that it breeds conflict because there's weak institutions and they don't have industrialized economies. So it's hard for people to get jobs, a lot of people to get jobs in like the service sector or something like that. So it leaves people to fight over scarce resources and opportunities. And there's different ethnic groups and tribes and religions constantly vying for dominance over others because the most powerful group can secure their interests more so than any other group that lacks that same kind of power. So a lot of times it falls into violence. Say this is like some attack on Christianity. It's not true. It's just not true. It's not. You have to take in all the context and all the other reasons that are motivating this violence. Religion is just one small aspect of it.
Church there in Nigeria.
Arguably the least important aspect of it.
And I read a study the other day, feel free to fact check me on this, to any of the other panelists, that more Christians have been slaughtered in Nigeria for being Christian in the last few years than Palestinians have been killed in Gaza during the midst of the Israeli-Gaza war. But you don't...
Let me see that.
Panelists, that more Christians have been slaughtered in Nigeria for being Christian in the last few years than Palestinians...
The last few years. Why is she being so vague?
...have been killed in Gaza during the midst of the Israeli-Gaza war.
We got to fact check everything this woman says. I'm sorry. She's a propagandist. I have to. I can't let her lie. I'm sorry to be pedantic, maybe. I'm sorry to be pausing and breaking this down, but these people lie incessantly, like pathologically. And she said for being Christian. Not just for any reason, for being Christian. So it's motivated by religious animus. And yeah, they just use this as a talking point. They don't actually care. They just use this as a talking point to push this Christians are being persecuted narrative. It's completely disingenuous. And they don't actually care. They're not sending money over there. They're not asking them to be given temporary protected status. It's all virtue signaling. Here are what credible sources say on both sides and how they compare. It's hard to get perfect figures, but based on what's publicly available. Nigeria, Christians killed over recent years. According to the Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa, in the 4-year period from 2019 to 2023, about 16,769 Christians were killed in Nigeria. In 2024, Open Doors reports about 3,100 Christians killed in Nigeria. For 2025, the first 220 days as of August, so basically almost this entire year besides September. For 2025, first 220 days as of August, a watchdog group, Intersociety, reports that 7,087 Christians have been massacred in Nigeria in just that period. So, summing roughly from 2019 through mid-2025, 6.5 years, a rough lower bound figure might be somewhere in the 20,000 to 30,000 plus Christians killed, or more, depending on undercounting in Nigeria, for reasons linked to violence targeting Christian communities. So she just lied. She just lied. It literally says here, according to Gaza's Ministry of Health, as of late July 2025, there's been 61,000. Last time I saw it was 66,000. This is from July. 61,000 fatalities among Palestinians in Gaza since the start of the war on October 7, 2023. Other studies suggest even higher numbers because of undercounts. For example, a Lancet-led study estimated 64,260 deaths from traumatic injuries by the end of June 2024, a number that was significantly higher than earlier official. So she just lied then. Given those numbers, the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 2023 is greater than the number of Christians killed in Nigeria over a comparable or somewhat longer span. Now, here's what I want to know. How many Muslims have been killed in Nigeria for being Muslim in the last 6.5 years, so the same time frame? Let's see what we get. From October 2019 to September 2023, 4 years, a report by the Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa, it's the same exact source, says there was 55,910 total deaths from I don't know why it's this is poor grammar. So, okay. So yeah, most of them were Christian from October 2019 to September 2023. 16,000 Christians were killed. There's also 6,235 Muslims killed. and 154. Okay, so let me see. Is there a religious war between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, and who started it? I don't know if we can get if we can get a clear answer here, but I'd be interested to see. Let's not spend too much time on this. Religion is deeply tied into violence, politics, and ethnic conflict, of course. It's better described as a complex mix of armed conflict, terrorism, ethnic rivalries, and weak governance. Yeah, so it's a byproduct of Nigeria having weak institutions and a lot of ethnic conflicts, and that motivates the religious violence. So conveniently just leave that out, I guess, spin a narrative. Why it looks like a religious war, both Christians and Muslims have been killed because of their faith in Nigeria. Groups like Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa province have specifically targeted Christians, churches, and schools. So, okay, so yeah, I figured Boko Haram and these other radical Islamist groups are killing Christians. Makes sense. Some Christian militias and local vigilante groups have carried out reprisals against Muslims, particularly in the Middle Belt, central Nigeria. Of course, they'll just conveniently ignore that because Christians can do no wrong in their worldview. Identity overlap. Religion often overlaps with ethnicity and religion. That's why. So there's a heavy correlation between people's ethnicity and their religion, and the ethnic divide is probably largely responsible for the violence. So the South is majority Christian, Yoruba and Igbo, and then the North is majority Muslim, Fulani and Hausa. And then the Middle Belt is mixed, and much of the violence occurs there. There you go. So the North is majority Muslim, the South is majority Christian, the center of Nigeria is mixed, and because so many Christians and Muslims live there, as a byproduct of this proximity and also these ethnic divides, they get motivated by religious divides, and it leads to this violence breaking out. So she reduced the entire conflict so drastically so she could spin a narrative about being only about Christianity. It's far more to it than that.
But you don't see any protests happening in the United States about that today. So it's ridiculous to try to create a left versus right paradigm here or some sort of attack against the Republican Party when there very clearly is a manifestation of spiritual warfare and demonic satanic influence in our society trying to attack Jesus Christ in America today.
It's so fake, like everything about it. And you can just pick up on how fake it is. Like, look at her facial expressions. It's very performative.
The Republican Party, listen, when there very clearly is a manifestation of spiritual warfare.
Does this seem real to you? Just be real. When you listen to this girl talk and you look at her facial expressions, it's all fake. It's just fake. I don't know how else to describe it. Just look at it for yourself. You can pick up on it.
About that today. So it's ridiculous to try to create a left versus
like the eyebrows being furrowed and the fake frustration
right
on the
paradigm
face
here, or
and the smugness.
Some sort of attack against the Republican Party.
Like the weird phraseology of it all.
There very clearly is a manifestation.
It's performative, but it's very like rigid.
Of spiritual warfare and demonic satanic influence in our society.
It's choreographed.
Trying to attack Jesus Christ in America today.
It's very fake. I don't know how else to describe it.
Andrew, I want to play a clip.
I'm not a Democrat.
And then look at her face, the fake like concern. It's fake. It's so fake.
Andrew, respond here.
Weird.
Chris Hedge, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, said on the Secular Talk podcast that Charlie Kirk's assassination was being used to create a new martyr for the movement of Christian nationalism, which he said is a backdoor to American fascism. Let's take a look.
When fascism comes to America, it won't be with swastikas and jackboots, and it will be with the Christian cross and mass recitations of the Pledge of Allegiance. You really got a glimpse of that in the rally in Arizona or rally, whatever you want to call it, the memorial service for Kirk.
Now, Andrew, two questions for you. One is,
like, look at her face. It's so fake. It's like you have to look charismatic. You have to look charming. You have to look interesting on camera because you're a grifter. It's all performative. It's all theatrical. It just like say what you want about Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson is real. Andrew Wilson is authentic. This is so performative. The difference in facial expressions and body language, there's a gulf.
What is your understanding of what Christian nationalism is? And as a Christian nationalist, are you concerned that it gets hijacked by people who may genuinely be white supremacists, fascists, and so on?
The answer to that question is yes, by the way. There's plenty of studies and reports and data out there about Christian nationalist groups and white supremacist groups being very closely aligned. Because in the West, Christianity has often cooperated with white supremacists, and many white supremacists are Christians. So they have very similar overlapping identities.
Well, not really. So the idea of Christian nationalism is just that Christians remain the culturally dominant force in the United States. That's it. That's the entire proposition. Everything else is an addition. So the gentleman over here, for instance, a quick question for you. Is Jesus Christ God?
I believe so, but I don't believe in imposing my opinions on others.
Okay, got you. So Jesus Christ is God. So all the religions are false?
No, I don't believe that at all. I believe in my house there are many mansions, and I believe God has many ways of the truth.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm better than anyone because Christ's movement is about humility. Christ's movement is not about public domination and power.
So I just want to make sure I got this right. Are all other religions false?
I don't believe that at all, no. And I don't believe right-wing Christianity is true either.
Is Islam
right-wing Christianity does not...
Answer my question.
Okay, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to say other religions are false, like by default. Obviously, that should be a no-brainer. I don't know why not just say yes. Come on, man. Like that's a give me.
Question, dude.
MAGA
is Islam
does
true?
not fight for the teachings of Christ.
Is Islam true?
Why?
Is Islam true?
Islam believes in the same God as Christians. Do you believe we should welcome the stranger as God and Christ command, or do you believe in Donald Trump?
Wait, they believe Jesus Christ is God?
It's not my religion. They believe Christ is a prophet.
So then it's
the Virgin
false.
Mary is mentioned more in the Holy Quran than she's mentioned in the Bible.
I'm going to walk you through the logic here. If Jesus Christ is God,
what are the Christ teachings that Trump fights for, my friend?
Then it is the case.
What are the gospel teachings your movement fights for? Your movement uses Christ as a prop, and you legislate against his commands.
Stop filibustering.
Dude, you interrupted me.
Your question. So I was in the middle of it. I asked you a single question and was getting to the follow-up, and you go on these long diatribes.
You asked
Calm down, listen to what I'm saying.
You asked two questions, my friend.
Logically, if it's the case that Jesus Christ is God, and that is true, then Islam has to be false, and you have to proclaim that that is the case as a follower of Christ.
Yes, too bad the founding fathers didn't have that system in our country.
Well, the thing that's so funny is that you say that you're a progressive Catholic, you're worried about Christians in power. You say that Christians are out here. Oh, Andrew, Christians are out here. They should be looking at these other immigrants as religious refugees. That's what you said, your own words.
They're actually Christian refugees. At our border, they are Christian refugees that y'all have been socialized to call illegals.
Then how come you...
That's just true.
Lobbied for Kamala Harris, raised money for the Harris campaign.
Because they don't see them as fellow Christians. They see them as brown invaders. That's just the truth. That's how they think of them. That's how they perceive them.
A Democrat operative, when she said that she wanted staunch border policies, she literally went to Guatemala and said, "You're not allowed to come. Do not come."
I know she did. I'm not a Democrat, my friend. I'm not a Democrat. Her policies cause less harm than Trump's.
You happen to be a Democrat operative.
Her policies cause less harm than Trump's, my friend. And her policies were closer to the actual teachings of Christ than Trump. Let me ask you.
Then that would be the exact same logic that we would.
I mean, Trump is literally the antithesis of anything Christian. He's self-centered. He's egomaniacal. He's corrupt. He's a felon. He's a criminal. He's a sex pest. He's perverted. Trump is like antithetical to anything Christian at all. The fact that he even mentions Christianity, and the fact that the United States needs it is shameful. He should never. Trump of all people, he's just using it obviously to score brownie points, but to sound good for his Christian nationalist supporters. But no, yeah, Trump is the farthest thing from representing Christianity. My goodness.
May I respectfully ask you one question? Can I ask you one question?
You're such a hypocrite, by the way.
Will you please? Well, may I please
Total
ask you one
hypocrite.
question now that you've asked me
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
many, and now that you've called me names? Dude, hit the other cheek. I can take it. Call me more names. I want to ask you something. Please tell me
Okay,
one actual
heretic,
gospel
false
commandment
Christian,
or
total
teaching
liar,
of Christ.
complete fraud. I'll tell you
Please
all
tell
those
me
names.
one actual gospel. Please tell us all and the viewers watching one actual gospel commandment or teaching of Christ that the MAGA movement fights for. Not what conservative Christians like. Something Christ, who is a mascot to this movement, actually commanded of us. Chapter and verse, if you can.
Sure.
Welcome the
If
stranger.
it's
Individuals
sure.
and nations
If it-
take care of the poor. Stop
Yeah.
executing people. Your
Do you want
movement
me to
Okay,
answer,
let
or are
him,
you
let him
going to
answer the question then.
Please
Do you
do.
want me to
Andrew?
answer, or
Please
are you
do.
going to answer? So the truth of the matter is
Give me
that
one.
if you're really as concerned with the poor as you claim, you would be all about the MAGA movement, who's trying to stop
I'm asking you
job-crushing
for one
immigration
teaching of the
to
poor.
the United States. I'm giving it to you. Calm down.
Christ
By your
commands
logic
us to
in your-
welcome
the
Calm
stranger.
down
Don't
so
talk
I can
over, we
answer
can't
your
hear.
question. Calm down so I can answer your question, lunatic. I'm going to answer it precisely. Here's how it
The
works.
names of this guy.
If it is the case that you make these bold claims like you do in your book, that Christians ought to be paying taxes for the poor so that we could, for the poor, we got to give it all to the poor. That's what your view is.
That's not
then
my
it would be
suggestion,
the
bro. That's
case,
Jesus' suggestion.
then it would be the case. Then it would be the case that you would not want these job-crushing waves of mass migration coming to the United States, which
One
displace
teaching of
the
Jesus,
poor.
Andrew. Just one.
They
Give me one.
displace the poor.
Give me one
I
teaching of
just
Christ.
explained to you that
Give me
if
one
it's the
teaching of
case,
Christ you fight for.
I just did. I just explained to you, if you really want to uplift the poor, you don't do it with crushing
What
mass
Jesus
migration.
teaching did you
crazy.
explain?
I just explained to you that by your view of what Christians
What
ought to be
teaching?
doing, we are doing it. Do you not understand this?
Christ
it's an internal
says that
critique of your
individuals
crazy
and
position.
nations will be judged. Christ says in Matthew 25 that individuals and nations will be judged. Heaven or hell.
Doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, from all the statistics I'm familiar with, mass migration doesn't actually. My opposition to mass migration is more cultural than anything. But to my understanding, mass migration doesn't really have like a huge negative impact on low-skilled workers. It affects like high school dropouts, I think, the most from what I've heard. Let me double check it, because people make up anything. Okay, let's look this up. Does mass illegal immigration to the United States depress worker wages based on economic data? And I think overall, migration or immigration is a boost to the economy. That's what I've heard. Short answer, not in general. Economists who survey the data that find large inflows of immigrants, including many who are undocumented, have small average effects on the United States. Small average effects. Weird phrasing there, but anyways, small average effects on United States wages, but meaningful negative effects for some specific groups. There you go. Especially lower skilled workers who are close substitutes for the newcomers. I'll summarize the evidence and what it means in practice. What the empirical literature says, high priority findings. On average across the whole workforce, most rigorous studies and major reviews find little to no effect of immigration on native wages. Interesting. Wage changes are typically very small, often near zero. This is the conclusion of literature reviews and the National Academy's major survey. Let's see. Miami's least educated workers, Borjas estimated a 10 to 30% drop for high school dropouts in Miami, although other scholars dispute the size and interpretation of that result. Interesting. Let's see. Meta-analyses and broad cross-city studies show wage elasticity is concentrated near zero. Many estimates lie between negative 0.1 and 0.02. So that's to say there's almost no correlation. So a 1 and a negative 1 would be a huge negative correlation or a huge positive correlation. Negative 0.1 and plus 0.2 it's near zero, which is to say there's almost no correlation between large sums of migrants and illegal immigrants to the United States to add to the labor supply. And in this case, it would show with negative 0.1, that would show that with more immigration, what is this? You would have, I guess that would mean there's a negative correlation between more immigrants and worker wages. Interesting. That's crazy. So yeah, very, very little effect overall. And oh, this is the wages. Okay, I see. And Borjas's study, which is the one that everybody talks about, that was among Miami high school dropouts. So there's no robust evidence to suggest that mass migration or illegal immigration has a huge negative impact on worker wages. There's just not much evidence for that. My argument is cultural. If they don't assimilate, they gotta go. That's my opinion on it. I care less about the economic argument.
Hell,
And
by
tell
how
me
they
this.
care for the sick,
What-
care for the poor,
Yeah.
welcome the stranger, and care for those in
Okay.
prison. MAGA legislates and votes against these commandments of Jesus.
And what was
but
the
uses
Kamala
Jesus as a
Harris?
prop
What was
to
the
gain
Kamala
power.
Harris Christian doctrine that you were for?
Kamala Harris is closer by light years to the teachings of Christ than the
What?
Republican
What?
Party, but I don't consider
Tell
the
me
Democrats
what?
to be.
Tell
I'm not
me
a
what?
Democrat. Where
You
on the treatment of immigrants, on anti-racism, on women's equality, on helping the poor, on making healthcare more accessible, on having less gun violence. I could do it all day, my friend.
Oh, he answered the question. That is true.
All right, Isabel.
So was that the epistle
Hang on,
made it
let
up?
Isabel
Jesus said, "Thou
talk.
shalt not have guns."
Oh, that's just rhetoric from Andrew. That's just smug rhetoric. That's it. He didn't have a response.
Gentlemen,
didn't
let
quote
the
Jesus
lady,
once.
let the
You
lady
didn't
on
quote
the panel
Christ
talk,
once.
please. Isabel.
Piers, I think this is precisely the problem because it just goes to show how in Western society today we are living in two completely alternate realities, largely based on the media that we are consuming, where you genuinely see this belief parroted among very mainstream Christians that the teachings and the policies of someone like Kamala Harris, who actively told Christians at her own rally, you folks are at the wrong rally, please leave, there is no place for you here.
She
that
told
her
hecklers
policies
that.
have been
Yeah,
better.
I was gonna say this is just. Of course, she probably just lied again. Now we gotta go pull up the clip. Oh my God. All right. Christian followers, they were not welcome. Let me see. What is documented is a particular incident in October 2024 in which she responded to hecklers at a rally by saying they were at the wrong rally. Here's what we know and what remains ambiguous. During a 2024 campaign rally in La Crosse, Wisconsin, protesters shouted phrases such as Christ is King and Jesus is Lord alongside anti-abortion statements. Oh, okay, that's why. Because they were anti-abortion. In response, Harris said, "Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally." Some news coverage frames that line as effectively telling Christian protesters that they were not welcome at her event. So yeah, she just lied. I mean, and look, at the end of the day, here's what I'll say, because this is actually getting ridiculous. This is the thing with news. Understand this, guys. Politics is war. It's warfare. And you have to use every single tool at your disposal to win the upper hand on your opponents. Lying, as it turns out, is one of the most effective ways of getting an upper hand. Just literally flat out lying. You have these anti-abortion Christians shouting and heckling Kamala at a crowd. I'm assuming while she was speaking, it said it was at a rally. And she said they were at the wrong event. Not because they were Christian, but because they were anti-abortion. And we all know the Democratic Party is the pro-abortion party. So she just lied here. She just flat out lied. It wasn't because they were Christian, it's because they were pro-life hecklers. But you can spin it like that. You know, it's just very convenient. I don't know. It's so dishonest. I got to give her credit. Excellent propaganda. She has the face for it, the facial expressions. But this woman, nothing she says means anything to me now. She's lied multiple times already.
Of someone like Kamala Harris.
She's coming up with these quick talking points, and that's it.
Who actively told Christians at her own rally, you folks are at the wrong rally. Please leave. There is no place for you here.
She told
her
hecklers
policy
that
would have been better for the United States of America. This is a woman who championed the abortion of more than 1 million babies per year in the United States of America, including through all 9 months of pregnancy and partial birth abortion,
which Bible's is not against abortion.
What we believe in the sanctity of life, especially as the Catholic Church. I should know myself, and maybe it's time to crack open a catechism to remind ourselves of that.
Abortion.
But Christians can't even agree on 80% of what Christ believed. It's crazy. Christians are the most, I don't even know what to say. Just out of all the religions I've seen, well, none of them are really that impressive, to be honest with you. I'd say the Muslims are probably the most devout of all the faiths. Most Jews don't even read the Torah. Most Jews don't even practice Judaism, from what I've seen. But Christians, man, very, they're just very mediocre. I'll just put it that way. Their faith, their deep connection to God and spirituality, very mediocre, to say the least. Most of the ones I've met, there's very few that I've met that are like truly exceptional examples of Christ. Many of them are deeply unimpressive.
They're legal and free in Israel right now. Judaism doesn't ban them.
Promoting actual immigration policy
from
that
very Christian nation of Israel.
And when it comes to centering immigration policy,
Christ's religion doesn't ban abortion.
It starts with stopping the horrifying human trafficking of children and the rape of babies and toddlers that happens on the southern border.
Oh, this is just another talking point. She speaks in talking points. Notice how this girl speaks in talking points. She doesn't speak as if she has like any genuine critical thought going on in her mind. She literally speaks in talking points. It's incredible. Southern border, rape, trafficking at the southern border, attacking Christians, Kamala Harris, the Democrats. Dude, okay. All right. Like you have a propaganda brain.
Every day. When it starts by lifting people out of poverty, it starts by giving people actual positions of employment that give them a long-term trajectory for financial success. These are Christian values, but our twisted, disgusting media in America and beyond has allowed for a very inverse reaction from Christians to believe in this version.
What Christian values is she talking about? What? Let's play that one more time.
People actual positions of employment that give them a long-term trajectory for financial.
No, let me play that back.
That happens on the southern border every day. When it starts by lifting people out of poverty, it starts by giving people actual positions of employment that give them a long-term trajectory for financial success. These are Christian values, but our twisted, disgusting media in America and beyond has allowed for a very inverse reaction from Christians to believe in this version of toxic empathy where we are supposed to tolerate and endorse evil and call that following Christ. And I think the last few weeks have been a really powerful example for Christians around the world to realize we no longer can tolerate demonic evil in the spiritual warfare.
How did you feel, Isabel? Isabel, how did?
Isn't that like the second or third time she said that? I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it from the intro.
Isabel, just on that point, how did you feel when at Charlie Kirk's memorial, his widow Erica made an incredibly powerful announcement of forgiving the killer of her husband, but then Donald Trump followed and said he hates his enemies and is still trying to work on the forgiveness bit. What did you feel?
How she responds to this is going to be very revealing.
Christian, what did you feel about that? The two exchanges?
Yeah, sure. If you listen to the president's full speech, she goes on to laugh about that, and it clearly was delivered as a joke. I'm not here to...
Oh, okay, so she's going to rationalize it, basically. Okay. Yeah, she's going to defend it. Okay. Okay, she's just going to lie. Let's play the clip, actually. I want to see the clip. These people lie, like, pathologically. It's incredible. For a Christian, she's doing a whole lot of lying. Trump says he hates enemies at Charlie Kirk Memorial. Maybe he was joking. We'll see. All right, guys, let's listen to this. Let's listen to this very closely.
But through it all, the core of Charlie's message and his basic method never changed. It never really changed. He stayed the same person also. At every campus event, Charlie asked the people who disagreed with him to come forward, and instead of silencing them, he handed them a microphone and let them speak. And he'd convinced so many of them. It was a pretty amazing thing to watch, actually. Shortly before Charlie arrived on campus, the day he was assassinated, a staff member texted him that there were many critics and students who were opposed to his views, and rather strenuously in the crowd. And that actually made him feel good, because he wanted to convince them. He understood. He really did. He understood what was right, and he was right about that. A lot of it was based on common sense, by the way. Charlie wrote back to the staff member saying, "I'm not here to fight them. I want to know them and love them, and I want to reach them and try and lead them into a great way of life in our country." In that private moment on his dying day, we find everything we need to know about who Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
We thank you for watching.
I mean, look. It's Trump. Trump says outlandish things all the time. And it's become so normal for him to say outlandish things that people stop realizing how outlandish what he's saying is. To go on stage at the memorial of somebody who's ostensibly your friend and is friends with your son, who was assassinated only 2 weeks prior, and to go on stage at his memorial where you're supposed to be saying kind things about him, and then to turn it around and make it about yourself and say, he loved his enemies, I hate my enemies. You know, maybe you can say there is some humor in what he's saying, but there's a huge element of truth in it as well, and that's evidenced by his actions. So, you can do all the rationalizing you want. He meant it. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, there might have been some humor in it, but he meant it. I don't know. Very weird rationalizing.
Sure,
here.
if you listen to the president's full speech, he goes on to laugh about that, and it clearly was delivered as a joke. I'm not here to speak for the president.
Oh, no, I think he meant it.
But I
don't think he was joking.
Just based on every single speech that was given at that event other than the president's, and if you took the time to watch all 6 hours of it, you can see this was not a rah, right-wing political rally. Every single speaker, including President Trump, took their time on stage to spread the gospel.
Guys, this woman is a right-wing mouthpiece. It's just right-wing drivel. I can't. It's like being strapped to a chair and being put into a dark room and being forced to watch Prager University. You know, Prager University videos for 10 hours straight. It makes you want to die. It's so disingenuous. It's so uninformed. It's so highly just flagrantly designed to be propaganda. That's what this woman is. It's disgusting. I'm sorry.
Gospel, to share love of God, to say we can no longer be afraid of proclaiming our faith in the world based on potential political backlash. And I saw one particular take that really bothered me from Destiny, who I know has been a common guest here on the Piers Morgan show, of people saying, you know, this was indicative of a Nazi rally. This was completely indistinguishable from a Nazi.
Guys, did you hear Stephen Miller's speech? He sounded like a Nazi. Did you hear Tucker Carlson talk about hummus-eating Pharisees? I mean, obviously, he's talking about Jews. Did you see the colors? Did you see the imagery? Did you see what the actual memorial setting looked like with all the red and the black? Yeah, it kind of looked like, it kind of looked a bit fascistic. It's not all out Nazi, but you know, it has some Nazistic elements, no question.
Rally led by Adolf Hitler. I don't know the last time a Nazi rally encouraged you to forgive your enemies and the people who violently assassinate your husband.
That is not what Stephen Miller said. Oh my God.
Well, also,
only one speaker did.
Well, hang on, just to be clear, also, there were a lot of Jewish people at this so-called Nazi rally, which a bit like the Madison Square Garden rally before the election, when they tried to call that the new version of the 1938 rally at MSG. It was completely absurd. There was actually a Holocaust survivor sitting in the front row. Let me come back on this issue, if I may, John, too.
Piers, that's obviously stupid, Piers, for obvious reasons. Oh my God. Jewish people literally came out after Tucker Carlson's speech and said it was an anti-Semitic speech. Okay.
Your book and your interpretation of Christian nationalism. I want to just quote the definition that you give of it on page 20 of your book. At its core, Christian nationalism is the belief that the United States was founded as a Christian nation and should remain one today, with laws and policies guided by a particular vision of Christianity. Unlike ordinary religious faith, which is personal and spiritual, Christian nationalism is political. It merges national identity with religious identity, insisting to be a true American is to be a true Christian and vice versa. I suppose what I would say to that is, America historically has been a Christian country. 62% of Americans today are Christian, which is nearly 2/3 of the country.
90% in the 90s.
Yeah, but my point being that it is still a large majority Christian nation. So
yes,
the
it is,
idea
and yet they constantly are under siege.
The idea that all of them are being political by identifying as Christian nationalists.
Didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying, if you extrapolate your statement that it's the Christian nationalism is political, all those people would identify, I would think, as Christian nationalists, right? Uncensored is...
No, obviously not. That's a stupid question. Just because you're a Christian does not make you a Christian nationalist. Do people know what nationalism means? Nationalism is kind of this idea that, like, there's a core of the country, the nation, and the nation is tied together by a certain ethnic, religious, or other form of some other construct or some other identity that bridges the nation together, right? And when you talk about nationalism, nationalism is this idea that, like, the nation should preserve itself. The nation should seek to strengthen itself by, strengthening its borders, strengthening its military, strengthening its citizenry, being technocratic, being led by experts, supplying its citizens with the resources and materials needed to strengthen the country. That's what nationalism is. And when you talk about Christian nationalism, what you're saying is those people should be the core of the country and should determine, its characteristics, its political contours, its future, kind of at the exclusion or at the diminishment of other groups, right? So Christian nationalism it's this political ideology that is unique and favors Christian identity over non-Christian identities and non-Christian faiths. And not every Christian believes that. So it's a weird question from Piers. The answer is pretty obvious.
Supported by OneSkin, a self-care business founded by scientists. Their patented OS1 peptide is scientifically proven. Restudied for 40 pounds.
Well, only about 30% of the country identifies with the main traits of Christian nationalism, and yet they make up 2/3 of the Supreme Court. But it is a very powerful movement that seeks to insert a very narrow, again, Christ-free version of Christianity onto every level of our government. The Founding Fathers were very thorough about this. Our official religion is all and or none. And if you are fighting against other religions because you think you're superior because of Jesus, then you don't actually follow Jesus, because his entire movement was about humility, uplifting the less fortunate, fighting for the marginalized, not total right-wing domination of politics or the school board. Again, I don't see any actual teachings of Christ that the right wing fights for. The only thing Donald Trump and Jesus have in common is they both spent a lot of time around hookers and they both use ghostwriters.
All right, Andrew, Andrew, let me just ask you a question, which is this.
Happy to talk about Scripture, by the way. Happy to talk about what Christ actually says versus Republican policies.
Me too.
Okay, Andrew, my question for you would be this. Under Christian nationalism, what happens to Jews, Muslims, Hindus, atheists? I mean, what happens to those people if the identity of the United States is to be a Christian nationalist country? Then where does that leave people who don't identify as Christian nationalists?
Yeah, same thing that happens when you have state religions in nations right now. Nothing. So there's Western nations, people forget about this, that have churches. They actually have the church of whatever the nation is. And guess what? You're still free to pray how you want. Guess what? Here in the United States, when it's 95% Christian, identified 95% as Christian, you can still be a Jew. You can still be a Muslim.
They're under siege, right? They're persecuted, right?
That would be a bonus in our favor that we're not doing the persecuting, doofus. So the thing is, it's so funny here. It's like even when we have full spectrum, even when we have full spectrum dominance, Jesus called people vipers like you. Even when we have full spectrum dominance in culture,
he was calling out the conservative religious bosses when he did that, my friend.
We are far better and leadership capacities than secular atheists are. Guys like this, their entire
you should be in power, right?
No, that's just a lie. You have to have evidence to back that up. What do you mean Christians are what? The CCP makes sure everybody in the CCP is atheist. They're like the second strongest country on earth, and they control like 33% of global supply chains, and they're all atheists. Singapore is an agnostic, secular country, and they have the best public housing, healthcare, education in all of Asia, effectively. Japan, South Korea, no crime whatsoever, way less crime than the United States. None of them are Christian. This is obviously just ideology, not reality.
Right, power for the Christian, yes, power above others,
crux of what you want is just gay sex, right? Isn't that really what your criticism is?
No, sir, you're lying about me because the argument makes you uncomfortable.
What are you upset?
No, sir.
What are you upset about cultural Christians for? What are you actually upset about here?
I want
Christians are in power,
to follow the
what do you
teachings of
think's going to happen to you? What do you think's going to happen to you if Christians are in power? What?
I think that the founding fathers were very specific more than once and said in the Treaty of Tripoli, ratified by Washington, signed by Adams, the government of the United States is in no way founded on the Christian religion. I don't consider your movement to be of Christ, my friend. I don't consider your movement to be of Christ.
Okay, if everyone talks at the same time, I can promise you. Hang on.
Trump's trying to ban an entire religion from entering the country, my friend.
If everyone talks at the same time, I can guarantee you one thing: nobody can understand.
From entering the country.
No one will understand what anyone says if you all talk over each other.
Sir.
Please, guys, if you talk over each other, no one can hear a word you're all saying. Isabel.
The founding fathers were actually quite clear that you were expected to understand a working knowledge of submission to God in order to be an active participant in governance in the United States.
Oh my God. Many of them were deists. Many of them didn't even believe in Christianity. Why do these people intentionally conflate deism with Christianity? It's disingenuous. I'm sorry.
13
Not
original
in government,
states,
no.
all of them, every single original state constitution of the 13 states required a declaration of faith to serve in the state government. 9 of them required you to have a declaration of faith as a Christian to serve in the state government. The Declaration
and yet the U.S. Constitution forbids it.
Our relationship to God.
It refers it to the 10th Amendment. Have you heard of the 10th Amendment?
And they had a better
The First Amendment forbids a religious test.
All right, let Isabel finish her point, then I'll come to the others.
In fact, the book of Deuteronomy is the most quoted book in America's founding documents by leaps and bounds, more than any secular text. So the very foundation of the United States of America was indeed to be one nation under God, a Christian nation.
But the founding fathers also wanted to have a separate. Hang on. The founding fathers also wanted to have a clear separation between church and state for the United States, didn't they?
Not really. They
okay, well, that's interesting. So, Andrew, am I not right in assuming that, Andrew?
You're not right in assuming that. They didn't want an establishment clause at the federal level for a national religion. States were allowed to have their own religions, and they did. They did have their own religions. She's absolutely right. You couldn't vote in many of the states unless you declared that you were part of the faithful. Like, this is just all revisionist history. We have the 10th Amendment, which says that
history.
if these powers are not given to the United States government, they go to the prospective states. The states had their own religious institutions. Mr. Viper over here is a complete liar, always has been. And his book, he's full of it.
The concept of the separation of church and state in our founding documents.
Same name Jesus said.
It's
not hard to say,
Bill of
Andrew. It's not very Christian. It's not very Christian to keep hurling personal insults at another person on the panel, is it?
Well, they take it up with Jesus. He called guys like this.
I don't remember Jesus saying, "Thou shalt go out and call everyone you don't like a doofus."
Vipers.
He did. He called them vipers all the time. I don't know what to tell you. He did.
He called conservative religious authorities those words.
The people who are trying to utilize rigorism against Christians, it would be exactly who Christ would call vipers.
I'm using Jesus against hypocrites.
All right, let me ask John. All right, John, hang on. Don't all talk at the same time, please. John, let me ask you this. You believe that Christian nationalism is against the American Constitution. Why?
Andrew Wilson is very power hungry. I don't think he's a good example of Christian ethics.
Because the founders were very specific about not wanting to have an official state religion. Our official religion is all and or none. The problem is the movement of Christian nationalism is as against the Bill of Rights as they are against the actual teachings of Jesus, which is why you will never see our right-wing friends fighting to put any Jesus quotes on any buildings. Jesus never mentions abortion.
Exactly.
God asserts that a fetus is property in Exodus 21, that a woman's life has more value in his eye. God gives abortion tips for pregnant unfaithful wives in Numbers chapter 5. It's why abortion's not banned in Jesus' religion. And that's why God and Jesus and Moses and Paul and the prophets never once condemn ending pregnancies or say what the penalty for ending a pregnancy should be. Am I saying Jesus?
I want to fact check this guy too, because I don't know if that's true. He said Numbers 5. Okay, I gotta fact check that because I don't know the Bible off the top of my head. Let's see what it says. Let me see. Yeah, but what is it? Oh my God, ChatGPT, so stupid. About abortion. The ordeal of the bitter water deals with pregnancy and faithfulness. Some see this as an indirect acknowledgement of unborn life. Wait, what? What is he talking about?
Which is why you will never see our right-wing friends fighting to put any Jesus quotes on any buildings. Jesus never mentions abortion.
Exactly.
God asserts that a fetus is property in Exodus 21, that a woman's life has more value in his
Exodus 21. Exodus 21. Fetus is property. What does it say? When men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her child comes out, but there is no harm, the one who hit her shall surely be fined as the woman's husband may exact from him, and he shall pay as the judges decide. But if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Interesting. Wow, okay, yeah. Some argue that this implies the fetus is treated differently from a fully born person, since the law imposes a fine instead of the death penalty if no harm occurs. Interesting. Interesting. Very strange. Okay, what was the other one he said?
God, that a fetus is property buildings. Jesus never mentions abortion.
Exactly.
God asserts that a fetus is property in Exodus 21, that a woman's life has more value in his eye. God gives abortion tips for pregnant unfaithful wives in Numbers chapter 5. That's why abortion's not banned in Jesus' religion. And that's why...
I don't know if that's the proper way to interpret any of this. This is very... The Bible is written like... It's just so unclear, the way the Bible is written in some cases. It's very convoluted. Okay, let me just type it in this way. Because I feel like this guy might be bullshitting. We'll see. It's possible. Yeah, it seems like he's just making this up. Okay, let's do this. Interesting. If a husband suspects his wife of adultery and she is found guilty through the ritual, she may drink bitter water that causes her womb to miscarry if she is guilty. Huh. If a husband suspects his wife of adultery and she's guilty, she drinks bitter water that causes her womb to miscarry. It's literally advocating to kill the child if the wife cheats. That's insane. Interesting. Okay. That's weird. So hold on, if a husband finds out his wife is cheating and it's proven, she must die with the fetus. Am I interpreting that correctly? Maybe. Sorry, I'm trying to think about this on the fly. This is all so weird. Okay, I don't feel like reading all this. I'll just let these people speak.
God and Jesus and Moses and Paul and the prophets never once condemn ending pregnancies or say what the penalty for ending a pregnancy should be. Am I saying Jesus was pro-abortion? No. What I'm saying is for 45 years in my country, Piers, right-wing Christians have been groomed to prioritize something Christ never talked about and then vote against all the things he actually commanded. Jesus was against the death penalty more than once, not a fan of killing the sinner, never mentioned abortion, and yet you can't run for office as a Republican unless you want to criminalize abortion.
Like, why is she making all these faces like everything he's saying is just a lie? It's like, it's just like, it's fake, it's feigning shock. It's so performative. I hate it.
Abortion, have the government force citizens to be pregnant against their will, pretend that comes from Jesus, and also think Jesus was wrong about not executing people.
Isabel, I get the feeling you don't entirely agree.
No, not one iota of me agrees with that statement, Piers, and nor should
Where does
any
the Bible
good
ban it?
in Scripture. It starts with a very simple commandment in the 10 Commandments: "Thou shalt not murder." Let's take off our Catholic hats for a
Judaism
second
does not consider a fetus to be a full life. Abortions are legal and free in Israel right now.
In biomedical sciences, and science is unequivocally clear that human life begins at conception. There is a genetically unique individual.
The Bible disagrees.
That's just not true. That's just not true. She said there's a biomedical consensus that life starts at conception? What?
In Israel right now.
In biomedical sciences, and science is unequivocally clear that human life begins at conception. There is a
Science is unequivocally clear that life begins at conception. Okay. We've been debating this for how many years now? We've been debating this forever. Where does life begin? When there's a heartbeat, when it has consciousness, at conception, when it comes out of the womb, what makes it a person. Dude. Okay. All right.
Genetically unique individual
The Bible
who has never
disagrees.
existed before and will never exist again, that is a living organism. And if that species is in fact a human being, which it is, it should be required that we give that person the same dignity, respect, and human rights of any other person on earth. This is this toxic empathy twisting concept of the American church that has been hijacked by left-wing politics, where you can look at a human being waving at you on an ultrasound, just like my daughter did at 11 weeks old, where I could count every single bone in her hand.
As did my son.
Tell you that the death penalty should be outlawed from society because human beings should have rights and
Jesus
dignity.
said that.
Also look at a baby and tell you that that child is worthy of literal human sacrifice. It is disgusting to me.
Okay, Andrew.
And I'm just saying that the Bible never bans it. Jesus bans the death penalty. This is a movement that doesn't fight for the stuff Jesus talks about. They fight for the stuff conservative Christians prioritize.
I mean,
okay, let me bring
Jesus bans
Andrew.
executions, yes.
Let me bring Andrew in here. Andrew.
Yeah, so the thing is funny is like he keeps on citing Israel as though that has not become a much more secular nation. There are Orthodox Jews who fight over abortion all the time.
Religion.
All the time, Orthodox Jews fight over abortion because of the idea of ensoulment, sir. And what does your Catholic dogma say about ensoulment? What does it say? Your Catholic dogma, you, the self-described Catholic, what does your dogma say about the ensoulment of a fetus? Can you tell me?
I was raised Catholic, sir, but my church is against the teachings of Christ on many areas.
Answer my question. What does the dogma?
Does God?
What does the dogma of the Catholic Church, which you described yourself as
Catholic
a quote,
Church
progressive
says,
Catholic?
Okay, the Catholic Church says conception. The Bible says first breath. My point here is that the Bible does not ban it.
Catholic who
Y'all
doesn't
have
believe in your dogma.
prioritized something the Bible never forbids, and you vote and legislate against the stuff Christ actually talked about.
So let me get this right.
You're
a progressive.
Does God, Andrew,
you're a
does God, let me
progressive
ask you a
Catholic
question
that
back.
doesn't believe in your own dogma.
Andrew,
is that right? You don't believe in your
I don't
own
really
dogma
know if the
as a
Pope would consider me a
progressive
Catholic anymore. No, I think the church is wrong about a lot of things, Andrew. Some of us go beyond it.
Progressive Catholic. Why?
Because that's how I was raised. Let me ask you a question.
Catholic.
Andrew.
Because you were trying to give credibility to a Democrat. That's why.
Andrew, does God knowingly ensoul fetuses that he knows are going to be aborted?
I don't even know what to say. I think this conversation is so absurd.
According to Catholic dogma, yes.
People.
So God puts a soul in a baby that he knows is going to be. So God puts a soul in a baby that he knows will be aborted.
Do you realize that by your logic, you would be denying the omnipotence of God, that God does not know you're going to die before you die? Do you believe that? You just said Jesus Christ is God.
I'm not denying that at all. I'm asking you, does God put a soul? Does God put a soul in a fetus that he knows is going to be aborted?
Hang on. I want to ask John a question, just to round things off here, because we mentioned Charlie Kirk a lot. I watched a lot of the Charlie Kirk service, and I found a lot of it profoundly moving, I have to say. Not least of all, the crowd themselves. I did not get the feeling I was at some, full-on political rally. Trump did what Trump does, and he obviously made some of it political. But actually, most of the speakers, as I think Isabel said, really talked up other things that Charlie Kirk stood for. But the overriding feeling I got was of a religious ceremony here, paying tribute to somebody who, at the forefront of everything he stood for, was his Christian faith. And the one thing I can absolutely guarantee, as a consequence of the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk, is that I think there will be a definite increase in the number of young people identifying as Christians, and they will probably identify as Christian conservatives. I mean, that, John, I think is almost an inevitable consequence of what happened. What do you think?
I don't care what they call themselves. I wish Christians would follow, believe in, and fight for the things Jesus actually talked about, as opposed to the things conservative Christians have been groomed to fight for and prioritize, which often have nothing to do with the teachings of Christ. There is no Jesus-based defense of Donald Trump support. You look at immigration alone, you have to reject God of the entire Old Testament, who commanded us to treat the alien as one of our own. You have to reject Jesus, who said that the way you treat the immigrant is the way you treat him. I need someone to explain to me why Donald Trump's right and God and Jesus are wrong. I don't care how people
I mean, look at the way Donald Trump treats migrants. Wasn't Kristi Noem doing photo shoots in front of migrants being locked up in cages at Alligator Alcatraz. And Christians weren't freaking out about that because it's all for show. It's all virtue signaling. When people say I'm a Christian conservative, I just think it's a big virtue signal at this point. It doesn't hold any water to me. Like, you shouldn't have to argue or prove how much of a Christian you are. It should literally just shine through you. And I am yet to meet a Christian conservative whose Christian faith shines through them. I'm yet to meet one. I've never met one. And it's just like they're just oozing Christianity, and you can just feel that Christian compassion. Haven't met a single one. All of them are just political right-wingers who use like some Christian talking points. That's it.
Identify.
Okay,
I love many conservative Christians, and I'm not talking about the conservatives. I'm talking about the right wingers.
All right, hang on, Andrew,
It's the same
explain
exact
that.
logic. Yeah, it's the same exact logic that he used when he was raising money for Kamala Harris, who said we have to have secure borders, told Guatemalans can't come into the nation, and said, quote, I did this now as justification because otherwise I would look like a hypocrite, because she was the lesser of two evils. We can use the exact same argument.
Yeah.
The exact same argument. It's the lesser of two evils to have a wide open border where human trafficking can occur.
No one called for a wide open border. No one called for that. You're bearing false witness.
You did. You said the religious refugees. We should look at them as religious refugees and just be totally
Jesus
accepting.
calls for an open border, yes.
That's what you said
Jesus
we should
called
do
for
and
an
how
open
Christians
border.
should behave.
God called for an open border. And Ronald Reagan called for an open border and amnesty.
Because, sir, you're a hypocrite.
I haven't
the very
called for
thing
that.
you accuse us of.
No, I'm not.
You yourself did.
Why is
you
Jesus wrong about the
for
border,
Kamala
Andrew?
Harris, who had the same,
Why is Jesus wrong?
Border policies.
Dude, she was going to hurt less people, and it's been proven, by the way.
No, she would have hurt more people with human trafficking.
That would be alive if USA...
Hang on.
The USA ID cuts alone,
hang on.
She would have hurt
You know the
more
thing about the border...
He's so... Andrew Wilson is so combative with his debate that it like, he doesn't understand, like, it's counterproductive. Like, it just comes across like he's arguing and shouting over you. If he would just wait a second, let his opponent finish their thought, and then reply and say something that completely deconstructs everything their opponent says, and he replies with something with more substance, more evidence, and more teeth, he would go a lot further in his argumentation. But instead, he just tries to railroad and talk over his opponent, and it just looks horrible. That's all I'm saying. I'm just calling it how I see it.
The thing about the border debate which makes me laugh, today, 2 clips have gone viral on X, and it's of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton both talking about the southern border in a way that today, the woke left would describe as speaking in a fascist way about illegal immigrants. And that just shows me there's a lot of hypocrisy.
The left called them that back in the 90s, Piers.
A lot of hypocrisy on all sides, but
back in the 90s.
It certainly used to be the norm for Democrat leaders to talk in a way that they now pretend is talking like a fascist, which doesn't reflect...
And Ronald Reagan called for amnesty and open borders, Piers. It's gone back and forth on both sides.
Ronald Reagan also said a country without a strong border is not a country.
He didn't call for open borders.
But Ronald Reagan gave about. He did call for open borders. Ronald Reagan's argument was, let him come over here and work.
He didn't.
Reagan also said if there's open borders.
What?
Piers, your viewers can Google this. Reagan said when they're done working here, they can go back home.
John, Reagan literally said,
that's not
if a country
borders,
doesn't have a strong border, it's not a country, right?
Yes.
That is not
Reagan used the term, and Reagan gave amnesty to millions. My question is, why is Donald Trump right and God and Jesus are wrong?
Well, if you ask Trump, it's because...
Why is Kamala right and God and Jesus are wrong?
Now you're not answering the question, Andrew. Why are God and Jesus wrong on abortion?
This is just slop.
First of all,
I'm not a Democrat, bro. It's not going to hurt me.
Abortion is very, very clearly outlined in both Catholic Church and...
He's definitely a Democrat. Don't be fooled.
And Orthodox
All right, let's not get back into that. Let's not get back into that.
Bad news for you.
We've done the abortion debate. I want to end, Isabel, by asking you, when you saw Erica Kirk and her address at her husband's memorial, I mean, I got a sense of somebody feeling a very, very strong conviction to take over from him and becoming almost immediately an incredibly powerful advocate, actually, for the Christian conservative right.
Dude, a couple of days ago, Erica Kirk was talking about all the unreleased content and all the unreleased interviews and videos and et cetera, on the Charlie Kirk show, like a few days ago, as if her husband wasn't just blown to smithereens like not even a month ago. Publicly executed in front of thousands of people. And she goes on his show and she's all bubbly and smiley talking about all the money and all the unreleased content that she's about to put out there of her dead husband on his own show, sitting where he sat, speaking into his microphone. Dude, all these people are fake. I'm sorry.
I think you're exactly right, Piers. You know, many people...
I'm sorry. I'll just say one thing real quick. A lot of people will say I'm cynical, and I think that's fair. Maybe I am cynical, but I have seen so much fakery, so much kayfabe, so much dishonesty, so much lying in politics that I can't unsee it. I think all these people are playing. I think all these people are fake. I think they're all lying, and you'd be much closer to the truth in assuming that than assuming the opposite. That's just my 2 cents. Hence why I am very cynical about all these people.
They're saying that perhaps no one influenced the culture of young men over the past decade as much as Charlie Kirk. I wholeheartedly agree with that. In returning to traditional masculinity and embracing objective truth and submitting to God in a culture telling you that your faith is oppressive in some way. Now there's this new frontier in the culture war conversation with young women, where the angry leftist feminist rhetoric that has just destroyed women's happiness over my lifetime in America is starting to lose its shackle on young women. I think Erica Kirk is really becoming a powerful voice for godliness.
Like, nobody's even talking about feminism, and she brings it up. Like I said, these people are just propagandists. That's all they do. That's their whole job. That's their whole life. They get paid to propagandize. That's it.
For morality, for forgiving of your enemies, for embracing a soft femininity. I'm incredibly excited to see her in this new role at Turning Point USA. And
I have to descend by saying that as an Irish Catholic myself, it was very noticeable to me that whether you're on the American Christian right or the American Christian left, in the end, actually, God decided it would be an Irishman that would win the Ryder Cup. So there you go. And there's nothing that any of you guys could do about it.
Glad he's weighing in on something.
Nothing
Glad
you
he's
can do
weighing in
about
on
it.
something, yes.
The prayers of the Europeans were answered in glorious fashion. And maybe that is how we should end things. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Piers.
Peace to all.
It's Medicare.
All right. Well, there you have it. What to say about that? I don't know, y'all. I don't even know what to say. Don't be a Christian nationalist, I guess. Be a nationalist. Be a nationalist for sure. Advocate strong borders. Advocate worker protections. Advocate a symbiotic relationship between the state and its citizens, a symbiotic relationship between workers and business as much as possible. Fight against corruption because it is in the best interest of the nation for the survival of the nation. Advocate immigration restriction with limited immigration and absolutely oppose mass migration, obviously. Obviously, you got to oppose all those things. But don't be a Christian nationalist. Don't be a Christian nationalist. I don't know what, I'll be honest, I don't know what the Christian nationalist philosophy is, what their doctrine is. Many of them have different ideas of Christian nationalism. Many of them are white nationalists as well. They just call themselves Christian nationalists, but they're just white nationalists. Yeah, I don't know. I want the Christians to do better because they're not really looking too good right now, many of them. I'm very disappointed. I expect better from Christians generally. Anyways, that's all I got to say. God, let's save this country.